Everyone, Kay Berkner here today with Dr. Tom Phelan, author and creator of 123 Magic, as well as the author of The Manager Mom Epidemic. Dr. Phelan, welcome.
Good morning, Kay. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good.
I was commenting, you look very sharp today with your tie on.
I was just in a different kind of mood, you know what I mean?
I do. So today we are going to be talking about bedtime, which is one of the very common challenges that we hear from parents. So, Dr. Phelan, you said that there are two reasons that kids don't want to go to bed. Can you share what those are?
Yeah, I think these are very helpful for parents to understand, but kids don't want to go to bed, number one, because it's boring. Life is exciting. Life is fun. Mom and dad are going to stay up. I want to know what you're doing. You know, you guys are up there having fun watching television or doing something. I want to be there. It's a FOMO kind of a thing in a way. And the second one, which is also very important, is that little kids, when they get, preschool ages 2, 3, 4, 5 and stuff, they get nighttime fears. They get scared of going to bed. It's the dark. There's a burglar in the closet. There's somebody, and one little girl, she thought somebody was crawling up the wall. Or she was afraid of that, and so on. And so they get nervous. And the problem with kids being anxious or nervous is that you can't sleep. You try it sometime. You try and sleep when you're anxious or nervous. It does not work.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then what ends up happening when you have either a bored kid or an anxious or nervous kid at bedtime?
What ends up happening is these pajamas itch. I have to go potty. I'm thirsty. The dog's still outside. You get the litany of bedtime complaints. And most of those complaints are to either let them out of the room or get you into the room. And this, of course, is, and then the parents will try and read, no, there's no burglar, there's no this, there's no that. You have to respond directly to the two things, the FOMO, the boredom, and the fear. You have to do things to reassure the kids concretely. Otherwise, you're in for a long evening.
Absolutely. So what is the thing that parents can do to sort of make bedtime run smoothly?
The first thing you want to think about is what we call a basic bedtime routine. And that means, first of all, you pick a bedtime and you stick with it. If you vary that bedtime 1 out of 10 times, you're in for trouble. So, and I know you can't always do it. And it can be different on a weekend than, on a weeknight. But you pick a bedtime, and then for about 20, 30 minutes before then, you're going to have a routine. For the little kids, the preschoolers, you're going to have to help them through that and reinforce them and so on. For the big guys, they get ready for bed independently, then they check in with you. For everybody, at the end of it, for the last, whenever they're ready, it's either story time, you sit on the bed, or you sit on the bed just talking to them, about how their day was or one thing or another. And the nice thing about that, it reinforces their getting ready for bed independently or constructively with you. It's a calm time that helps them get ready for sleep. And it's a pleasant time between you and them. So every night, basic bedtime routine, calming right before it's lights out, and you do that every single night of your life.
Okay, great. And so what happens if your kid is dawdling, if they're getting distracted while they're brushing their teeth, if they take 10 minutes to pick out the perfect pajamas? How does that impact the bedtime routine?
What that's going to do, especially with the older ones, is they won't have as much time for story. So if it's, it's 2 minutes to 9 and they check in with you, say, now, honey, tonight we only have 2 minutes for story because it's 2 minutes to 9, and so on. So that's all the time. And soon they'll learn that the faster they go or the more efficient they are, the more time they have with you. And if they, they blow their stack at 2 minutes to 9, well, at 9, you're exiting the room and they're in there and they can have their tantrum, which of course will not help them go to sleep. But you're not going to intervene with that. They have their tantrum and then eventually they go to sleep. But they get the idea after a while if you stick with it, if you stick with the routine.
Got it. And so that was another question that I wanted to ask is sort of, how do you handle countable behavior that happens during the bedtime routine? So say, you've told your child to go up and get your teeth brushed and get your pajamas on, and they start whining or they start badgering. How do you handle counting during the bedtime routine?
Yeah, if you have enough time, like if it's within the half hour and they hit a timeout and it's a 5-minute timeout, then they'll go do the timeout. They'll do their break time and then they'll go back to doing what they're doing. If the timeout occurs in the bedroom and they could be changing their clothes and putting on their pajamas, well, that's life. You know, they can spend part of the timeout putting on their pajamas and they don't lose so much time.
Got it. And so what happens if we get too lights out and then we start having behavior challenges, right? So, okay, it's 9 o'clock, you know, I love you, good night, hug, kiss, lights turn out, parent leaves the room, and then you get, well, I need to fill up my water bottle. Well, I have to go to the bathroom. Well, there's a monster in my closet. Well, just one more story. What do you do at that point now that we've hit the actual established bedtime?
Yeah, that's when we're going to address both the FOMO, the boredom thing, and the fear with the same tactic that's called cut them off at the pass. And when my son was 18 months of age, he climbed out of his crib for the first time, and we thought it was the end of the world. And so I didn't know what to do. So what I eventually did, after a lot of trial and error, is I knew this was coming. And a lot of parents know, you know, you're going to get this. Potty, drink, all that, it's got to be taken care of in the basic bedtime routine. You're not getting up again. So I would sit in the doorway of his room with a good book, my back to him. And he'd get up, I put him back, he'd get up, I put him back. After a few times of that, I just let him go to sleep on the floor and I'd cover him up or try and put him in bed later, which I did. And in a couple of months, he was in a junior bed. But after bedtime, two things were not going to happen. Number one, he was not leaving that room. And number two, I was not going to talk to him. But my presence there took care of the boredom thing and the fear, because with the boredom, my presence there, he knows he's not leaving that room. I'm not talking to him. He's not leaving that room. And the other thing is my presence would reassure him if he was fearful about it. Just my being there reassures them. And then after a while, you can start moving the chair gradually a little further away, and so on. And do a book or just meditate or something like that. Don't do an iPad or a phone because it makes noise, it distracts, it makes the kids curious, and so on. But cut them off at the pass. That's the solution to both of those bedtime issues.
And how would you handle a child who is trying to interact with you while your sister, my son does this, he's 3.5, and he will very adorably walk up and just like gently pat my arm and say, mommy, 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 mommy. Like, so when the child is not necessarily trying to escape, but is clearly looking for your attention, what do you do with that?
You can do a couple of things depending on the child. You may have to experiment a little bit. Remember, you can't talk to him. And so if he's going to do that, you have to tell him beforehand, I'm not going to talk to you. Now, some kids get real upset with that and they'll tantrum, which, you know, makes things worse, but you still have to stick with it. So the other thing you can not talk to him, see what happens. The other thing is you could pick him up and put him back in bed physically, in which case he may get up again right away, like my son did for a while, but you're still not going to talk. And it's very important that you stay calm, because the more excited everybody gets, the longer it's going to take for them to go to sleep. So if he gets all, you know, cranked out of shape and so on, he may not go to sleep for an hour, or if he stayed calm, he'd be asleep in 15 minutes.
Sure. Okay, great. And then the last question I wanted to ask is, sometimes, you know, say your child has gone to sleep, whether using the cut them off at the pass routine or just calmly on their own. But sometimes kids will get up in the middle of the night and either call for you or start crying or actually come into your room. What do you do with a child who has woken up in the middle of the night to kind of get them and you back to sleep as quickly as possible?
Yeah, the first thing you do is, you know, you wonder sometimes what's going on. Did they have a nightmare and all that? Don't ask. What you do instead is assume they have to go to the bathroom. I went through this with my daughter when she was about 7.5, and she had to go to the bathroom. And they come in, and she wasn't in her right mind. She'd say something like, the elephant ran away. Well, that doesn't make any sense, and there's no elephant. Maybe it was a dream. But what you do is no lights, no talking, no emotion. You get up, you steer them to the potty, you put them on the potty. They go, you help them clean up if necessary, take them back to bed, put them in bed. and then sit by the bed till they go to sleep. Now, a lot of kids, once they've gone potty, they'll go to sleep right away and you can leave the room. Some of them you have to sit there for a while. But the important thing is no talking. If they had a nightmare, talk about it the next day. They probably won't remember it anyway. But assume having to go to the bathroom does all kind of weird things in the middle of the night to adults and children. And so assume that no lights, no talking, all that. Do that routinely. And usually they'll go, after. Sometimes they go through phases, but if you do that routinely, you'll find they'll come in, you do it routinely. That's what we did. It's no fun at all. Don't let them get in bed with you. A lot of people let them get in bed. Now you got a kid who has to go potty, who's in bed with you, which is like trying to sleep with a hyperactive octopus. They will kick you to death before 5 o'clock in the morning. So please do this right.
That doesn't sound like any fun at all. So generally, the answer around bedtime is going to be setting a routine, keeping it consistent, keeping it calm, and, explaining the expectations ahead of time, particularly if you have a kid who's trying to engage with you after that bedtime cutoff. Explain to them why you're not going to talk to them so that they don't get worked up about being ignored. And then once bedtime is done, no talking, no emotion. My biggest problem is I tend to laugh. I mean, like if my kid is trying to interact with me after bedtime, because like I know what they're doing, right? Like we all know, parents all know that you're stalling for more time, but so calm and consistent. Explain to them ahead of time if they tend to interact with you after bedtime. And then just no talking, no emotion. And that should help to make the bedtime process a little bit smoother.
Right. Repeat as necessary.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Phelan. This has been so helpful. If you're not already on our newsletter list, head on over to 123magic.com to sign up. We will send out parenting tips, videos, downloadables, and notifications of upcoming free seminars that Dr. Phelan will be doing. He usually does 1 or 2 a week, and you don't want to miss those. So head on over 123magic.com to get signed up. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon.